Good morning, everybody. This is Coffee with the Summerland Kids. We're getting started here. It's Tuesday morning. It's July 23rd. This is episode 77. And the weather today in Summerland, California, is currently 64 degrees with a high of 80 today in Summerland, mostly sunny. So I think it's basically a flawless July day in Summerland. I wish we were there running around and going to buy a Coke in a glass bottle at the Sandpiper liquor store. Would be amazing. God. Are you with me? Are you
the little vending machine, I think it was at the gas station. And you have to pull the bottle. I had little levers that locked it down. You put money in and then it would release and you'd pull one of the bottles right out there. Remember that?
Exactly.
At the station.
And then I also remember, for sure. And I remember they had a larger bottle Coke too, which was pretty amazing. It was it was almost like a 40-ounce beer, but it was a Coke. I can't remember, it was a liter bottle or something like that. Remember those?
I remember those. Those were like the big ones. Yeah.
The big ones.
They were that big around.
Yeah, exactly. It was and then, I don't remember buying those that often, but I know they were there. And it was almost like we bought bottles more than cans as kids. I feel like, I don't know why, if it was just, I don't know what, rhyme or reason when you're a kid, it's just, maybe you're just following the pack, when you follow Dan Taglis in the liquor store and Dan gets a bottle of Coke, you just go, I'm going to do what Dan did. I have no idea. But
I think when we were kids, that was the thing, we wanted to fit in. I guess we still do as adults. But yeah,
right.
it's
totally.
It's an interesting aspect, that the bottles, and I remember, nowadays you take the bottles in and they break them all up. But back in the day, they would take and wash them out and reuse them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they're still doing that in Mexico. You get the beers, and the incentive is actually to turn it back in, because it's almost like more of like a localized cycle. I feel like it's a local distillery that of course they want their own bottles back, because to me it saves them money, I guess. But maybe nowadays it's such a disposable, what is it called? Society is so disposable now and so throwaway. I mean, I feel like the trend of recycling, in our area, that we're so remote that recycling is a challenge in terms of the distance it has to go to get to a major metropolitan area to be like a commodity. Like the cardboard, I believe they stack it and bundle it here, and then maybe once every few months a larger trucking company will come and grab those bundles, and then so those guys will essentially make some money, but it might be a break-even kind of a situation. I'm not exactly sure how that recycling thing for our county, how they're actually doing,
Yeah, it's wild. Once they started that California CRV, and you got to pay, every time you get a bottle or a can, you got to pay a certain amount for each one. And it's interesting, how, a lot of people just throw that away. They're throwing their nickels and dimes away. They got the blue bin, so you throw your recyclables in that. And, I guess back in the day, it was a lot more expensive, a lot, more difficult to produce bottles and cans and stuff. But it's just, society moves on. I don't know if it's ever going to go back. I mean, the resources, I guess we have lots of resources in the world, but as far as the cost for extracting them and everything, it's like you talk about, renewable, you got to have your electric vehicle, but how much effort and expenses does it take to get the raw materials to, create a lithium battery, or
Yeah.
create a renewable resource.
Right. And then also to the longevity, like I doubt, you can see by just our in our lifetime when we were, younger men, um, in theory, we could still be driving our first car if we would have kept it, um, and just pretty much kept the oil changed and changed the battery, do the maintenance, blah, 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 blah. We could be still driving our same car, without really any major upgrades. But if you bought a, Milwaukee or DeWalt drill when you were a teenager, that thing would be so outdated by now and essentially obsolete. It's almost like I think the craftsmen, they're probably able to get a couple years out of their tools in terms of the battery related items, but they have to continually upgrade because there's also I guess the technology comes up and it gets a more powerful tool with more life, but not that much more life, in timeline wise.
Oh, absolutely. Those little batteries aren't cheap either. I know my helper, he's got I think it might be DeWalt. It's the yellow one, but he's got like a 48-volt battery pack and a skill saw.
Okay.
It's battery operated. And it's like back in the
Yeah.
day, the construction workers, they'd have to run out their cords and run out. A
Yeah.
lot of times they had air tools. And now everything's, electric with a battery. So you can run around without the umbilical cord or the
Yeah,
attachment
exactly.
to them.
Totally. Yeah. I'm fortunate. One of my buddies, shout out to Yuri Elvin in LA. Yuri was an old Summerland kid too for a bit, but Yuri gave me a set of Ryobi, like a couple drills and a skill saw. And it's been like at least solid 5 years since he gave me that equipment, and it's still running. So that stuff's amazing, and it's held up even in freezing. I don't leave it outside in the freezing weather, but it'll be in the barn, and the barn's not heated. So, it's withstood some time and it's still working. So shout out to Ryobi for making a good alternative. I think it's looked upon as a lesser brand. It's not quite up there with the DeWalt and Milwaukee, but it's still a viable product that does the job just as well. I mean, imagine it's like when we were kids, it was like Levi's were cool, but sometimes our parents, right out of the Sears catalog, get us like Sears Tough Skins. So, so the Sears off-brand wasn't as cool as the Levi's or the Wranglers or something like that. But heck, they still work just fine. Even though they were.
Oh, absolutely. And what's the big thing now? Everyone shops at the Costco, right? So
right.
Costco's got its Kirkland brand jeans, and those are actually pretty solid jeans,
Right? Yeah. No, exactly. So I mean, for guys, I think, thankfully, guys, for the most part, the men's fashion is not as critical as the women's fashion. I know the ladies have to have very specific, in some of them at least, have very specific brands that they like the fit or the look, or it's like, I think it's that pack mentality as well. When they hang out and whatnot, or just the trends you're following on Facebook, who knows how that all that stuff happens.
I mean, it's wild to think about things. You got like the Louis Vuitton or Prada, and it's like, you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a purse or even a jeans or a jacket. And it's just like, to me, I guess because I'm more utilitarian, I'm not so worried about other than the ties,
yeah, exactly.
Like a fashion,
totally.
Something to me is so much more valuable than, just because it's unique.
Yeah,
I guess. And, it's like some of these ties, you look at them, and like my girlfriend used to work in a men's fashion, right?
Okay.
And so, she's telling me how sometimes things are just so expensive. Like you go to Costco, you get a white shirt and it's, maybe $15-20. But if you go get a Tommy Hilfiger or Louis Vuitton, it's still just a white shirt, but now you're
Yeah.
paying a couple hundred or even a couple thousand because of that little label,
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, exactly. That little label. I know, it's wild. I mean, when I went to Boot Barn to check out, I guess I just want to see what they had. And then plus I was on the lookout for Levi's. So I got myself a pair of jeans and, looked at some of the shirts and some of the Pendleton shirts. What I know, Pendleton's a great brand, but man, their short sleeve basic, cowboy plaid shirt was like $65. So it's like, okay, $65 plus they're kind of pairing it with a t-shirt that's probably $35. So you're spending almost $100 for a shirt and a t-shirt pairing. And that's pretty extreme. I mean, I guess if you're really pulling the money, and you can afford to go down that road, there's that. I guess it's all about, sometimes it's utilitarian cost, or also too, if you're in a certain business that requires you to be, again, I think it's that pack mentality, keeping up with the boys at the office or something like that. And
I think part of it is, but in construction, you got like the Carhartts, right? And those are
right.
pretty expensive, to buy. But gosh, you get a nice Carhartt jacket or some nice Carhartt jeans, they will last you, pretty much a lifetime.
You're right. You're right.
So some of the quality, you do have to pay for the quality, of course.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Things like the Kirkland jeans, those are just as durable and usable and even, quite fashionable. Blue jeans.
Yeah.
What the heck?
You
don't have to pay a premium, I guess, for that label. When you I guess off brands or lower brands. I remember back in the day, the OP used to be, I got the OP, they're so cool, but now it's kind of fallen to the wayside.
Oh yeah.
You got some other brands, As High as I Am, and other brands are just at a premium because they're so popular. That people want to be on the in crowd. And it's kind of interesting, that sometimes people will spend beyond their limits to look the part. It's like,
oh, for sure.
How many wealthy millionaires that are humble and just have a regular wardrobe, and then people like in Hollywood, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on a dress they wear one time to an award ceremony just so they can get in or be the talk of the town.
Right.
They're going into debt to play the part, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's the challenge, man. It's definitely real out there. That's for sure. It's a whole world, and it's amazing that what is it called? Who's on deck? I should keep a track of on the calendar. Like I'm trying to track what's going on in the Comic-Con world, and I think just coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that would be 4 days, is the Comic-Con San Diego. And then there's another Comic-Con I saw in coming up. It'd be definitely not in summer. It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I guess it's an older convention that's been going for quite a while. So, those things are fun to follow just because for me right now, since I'm working on Grandpa Bill Woggin's project, I'm interested in what's going on at those conventions and what they're talking about, because I want to learn. When I was in Los Angeles, I made friends with Michael Dooley. He's a teacher at Art Center College in Pasadena, and he was teaching arts. Was it design history of cartooning and animation? And so his classes he was having a lot of guest speakers, really cool artist guest speakers that were famous cartoonists and illustrators and animators from that we know from our childhood. And I would go and sit in on the class, because he would basically, when he did these lectures, it would be free and open to the public. So nice. It was rad. So the kids would be there because they had to be there. It was their class. But then you have a few other interested, folks that are just following the passion of the cartooning and animation, wanted to just check it out. So that was a cool little thing. And then he I think he guest judged the Will Eisner Awards in 2020, and he'll be, I believe, attending the Comic-Con this year and sitting on a panel discussion. And so those things are fascinating because it's such a funny side note topic. The cartooning and comics, now it's crossed over into film. I mean, in the early days, we saw, of course, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man on TV. And then in the 80s, I think is when that one Christopher Reeve, when we were kids, pulled out Superman for us in our lifetime. And that was freaking amazing. I mean, as a teenager, I definitely thought that was cool. The movie.
Oh, absolutely. Now,
yeah.
Now I don't know whether it was a post or one of our previous conversations you had said, like when you were a kid or whatever, how, you kind of looked up to your grandpa doing cartoons and maybe even wanted to be a cartoonist sometime in your life. Is that still a passion for you? Is that still something you hope maybe or want to be part of, or have you converted it to the like the Burning Man and Coachella type, production, not necessarily production, but what do you call it?
The installations,
installation art. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a weird, a thing where I could, I feel like I by on my own, when I first did my first art show in 2003, it was my first, like, I guess would be like promoted solo show where I had an opportunity to show at a restaurant. And then I also had some financial backing. So I had a writer that I hired myself, as well as there was a PR firm that I worked with. And then some of the things that they said about the work was they looked at the work and thought it looked like blow-ups, like close-ups of essentially like out of a comic book. So there is a relationship between my work that just sort of happened because it's built into me in some weird way. So it's almost like if your father was a mechanic, and then you took two mechanics naturally. Obviously, I think there's something to be said for what's handed down in your blood. And so, because some people are naturals and some people maybe are not naturals to certain things. But I do feel like I definitely have that natural talent, but it's another thing to focus on the actual producing of the work and create consistently. Consistency is important. And I stuck to a certain style, using certain materials, mainly wood and paint, with my installation art. And I have, in some cases, taken time outs from it to almost catch up with myself, because the one piece I created that was really large was something that was larger than my own self or something. So I had to take. It took me a few years to catch up with myself and what I had even created. It was a weird thing where something I created in Santa Barbara for let's say a private party in a private venue, but it was open to the public, yada yada. But I created this art for that, but that piece was, I made it so it could go outdoors. And one of my first opportunities to show it outdoors was at Burning Man. And then that allowed me to set it up outdoors and get that a larger audience to see it. And that's helpful. So it does take some determination and then desire. And then sometimes you kind of work yourself into a weird spot where it's hard to, make the decision on what's next. Do you keep working with the same material? Because the material I have been working with is not really permanent in terms of the longevity of how long it can stay up, you know, with those installations. So
Oh
it's
yeah, I
so,
mean, if it's an
yeah,
outdoor installation, wood is gonna, get moisture in it and start
yeah,
degrading. Paint's
yeah.
gonna fade,
Paint's gonna
everything,
fade for
But I
sure.
think that's, like you're saying, that's key, to have that desire, that drive, that passion for what you're doing. I could totally tell that, as you're into Grandpa's archives, that's something that you're just passionate about. You're
Oh
just like
yeah,
you are so interested in it. Every
yeah.
sheet of paper, every archive, every print, you're just like, I can see you just, maybe instead of just grabbing the sheet and stuffing it in, you stop and look and
I know exactly.
maybe take a picture
I
and
know.
admire it for, a certain amount
Yeah,
of time before you put it in the archive. In a way
I
you're
know.
archiving it in your
In your
mind, in
head.
your brain. Um,
Yeah,
that
it's a
Jericho Wagon,
challenge, dude.
that Bill Wagon the third or fourth
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah, exactly.
whatever generation you
Yeah,
are technically.
I know. Yeah, it's weird because the volume is like, I got one right here. Here's like a basic 3-ring binder, and then you have the plastic slip cover. These are the two elements, and then the other element that I work with is putting the document in the slip sleeve. And there's I realized yesterday there's like four more drawers of the manila folders to do, probably actually 4.5. So I've actually only done one drawer, and it's probably one drawer creates at least, I want to say, 7 of these. And this is like, I think a 3-inch 3-ring binder. So there'll probably be, so if it's let's say it's eight per drawer. I'm bad at math, but if there's 8 per drawer, and then you have 6 drawers, so what's 6 times 8? I mean,
I think it's 48.
okay, so that'd be 48 of these binders. And then if there's perhaps like 150 pages at least per binder, the math, it gets up there in terms of, there might be 10,000 pages of imagery.
Wow.
Yeah. And then on top of the 10,000 pages, what I showed my mom yesterday, what's amazing is there's essentially, I call it Grandpa's Internet. But the fun thing about Grandpa's Internet is there's A sides and B sides. So the A side is what he intended to keep. And that's like, let's say it's a picture of the Eiffel Tower. And so that's the A side, picturing Paris, France, Italy, whatever. That's the A side. The B side is something totally random that may not have any relation to Paris at all. It's an ad for Chesterfield cigarettes, or or Pall Mall, or a liquor company, or whoever, or it's just a cool picture of some celebrity from 1926. It's like Grandpa's Internet on the face side, but then it's Grandpa's Internet in reverse, and it's a whole nother thing, because relating it to records, it's like, yeah, Dad was a musician, and his one hit wonder on the A side of his album is the hit, but the B side, sometimes the B sides are cooler than the A side. To be
Oh yeah,
honest, I
absolutely,
mean,
absolutely. I mean,
dude.
you
So
gotta go through the layers. It's not like
yeah,
everything's presented. It's like doing a Google search. You search,
yeah,
you got your first couple pages of the most popular, the most SEO or whatever, the most backlinked.
yeah,
But then if you dig down, page 3, page 4, page 5, there's still content, and some of it's unique and obscure content that's not mainstream.
yeah,
Definitely a big part of what is going on. Because I mean, if you do a search for say for instance marbles, you
yeah,
know uh, you're gonna have obviously the Amazon, the eBay, the Etsy. But if you go a little further, you might find someone's personal collection with
Mhm.
just some amazing things that aren't mainstream, that aren't,
Yeah,
popular, that aren't well known. I guess, in a way, it's like the comic book collection and the art collection, to where, yeah, there's certain ones that are just well known and well desired, but then there's ones that people don't know about, ones that maybe you're having
exactly.
difficulty researching or finding any information about,
Yeah,
like, with the original art or the original print art that was sent in. How can you reference something that there is no reference for?
exactly. So sometimes I'll use both Google Lens and I'll use eBay, the little camera. It's on my phone, of course, the eBay camera option, and it'll shoot and it because I'm in the eBay app, and then I'll shoot the picture with the eBay app, and it'll pull up. In some cases, the exact same item on eBay, but in some cases, it doesn't have that exact item, but it'll pull up things that are very close and similar to it. So, like I think I looked up, God, what was it? That's maybe even that Superman page I sent you this morning, where it's a newspaper page from a newspaper from 1942, I believe, or 41 or 42. But 1942 Superman in a newspaper comic strip, and so on eBay it might not have the exact same one, but I did find three other people, let's say, selling other years of the Superman newspaper, but it's not the exact same one. So
Yeah, that's so cool how references work like that. How
yeah, and
something so unique. I mean, and it'd be hard to, I guess, really put a value on it if you decided to sell it, because what do you have to reference? Okay, maybe something similar. I guess you just have to do your best guess or
yeah,
intuition, or like I was watching this article or this story about collectors cards, like the baseball cards or the
okay,
basketball cards,
yeah,
and how the rookie cards, like there was some that they only printed one,
oh,
and some of them are selling for over $1 million for just one card, and that there were some that were printed that they haven't seen,
oh,
whether it's still in a collector's collection or maybe even an unopened box of
okay,
these baseball cards, to where, like, how can you determine the value other than putting it up for sale and seeing what someone will pay for it?
yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
I could take any number of things, this little ukulele, and say, oh, who has a ukulele like this? And maybe no one does, and so I could say, well, I want $1 million for it. No one will buy it. Or maybe I say, oh, we're going to start the auction at $5, and people are just like, I want it, I want it. And so one person bids, the next person goes, well, I'll pay 10, well, I'll pay 15. I don't know if you've ever been to an auction, but I know that they do have like the Sotheby car auction and some of these art auctions where the prices will just go up and up and up, because maybe there's a couple people that are very interested, they want it so much that they're willing to pay that premium, and
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
outbid the other guy, just to have that item. It's just real interesting. Like we were talking about with fashion,
Yeah.
how come one pair of jeans goes for $20 at Costco and the other pair of jeans goes for several $1,000s? Obviously there's certain aspects like of the art that's on it, or the name, the well-known name, um,
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. There is those that I researched that Superman just to see, because the Superman #1, I believe, comic book, the original, is like $500,000, maybe even more. But the newspaper strip, there's a few on there for like $20. So they're not as I guess they're not as obviously they're not as rare. I And since it's not a comic book, there's no glossy cover. It's just a newspaper page. And then the funny thing is, like, that's a B side. Superman was a B-side to Prince Valiant, because the reason my grandpa kept it was because it went into his, I think it was like something about estates, or it was oh no, it was Kings and Queens. That was the subject was Kings and Queens. So he was keeping the subject of Kings and Queens. So on the front side, here's your Kings and Queens, because it's talking Prince Valiant comic strip, but on the back side is Superman. So to me, Superman is more interesting than Prince Valiant, so it's like, it's one of those random little back end factoids. But like, my dad was like saying something like, just, you don't need to go through all that stuff, just brush through it. It's like, you can't just brush through it. It's every single page has got to be put in the freaking thing. Because also what I'm finding is the cool kid fan art, the original drawings are put into the folder because it relates to the subject. So in Kings and Queens, there's a few Katie Keens in there because Katie's dressed up like a princess with a crown or a queen. So anyways, we can go on forever about this, but we just rocked another
That's
show.
super cool, man. I'm glad you're still making progress.
I know, right? It's hard.
Smiling today, and I love the pictures that you sent this morning. But it is that time.
It's that time, man.
You're not gonna think top for now.
Thank you, Aaron. Have a great afternoon. I'll send you the info right now. Cheers, everybody.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Woo!